tradable at any time. In this market, these assets, you have total supply, you have circulating supply, and you have available supply. And so if you're looking at available supply, like we talked about earlier, it's really not that much in comparison to the total or circulating supply of XRP. And if you want to go back, Robbie Mitchnick actually put out a calculator, who is the head of digital assets at BlackRock for a period of time, that showed that XRP would work, really well at $10,000 per XRP. And you might go, okay, well, the market cap is astronomical at that point. That just doesn't make sense. And in the context of a stock, it wouldn't. Most people want something analogous to something else in order to make decisions. But to your point, a dollar in doesn't equal a dollar out. So my example on this, and this is crude, this isn't exactly how this works, but it's an easy illustration for people to understand. I mint Jake token. Okay. I mint a billion Jake tokens. It gets listed on Binance, and my mom buys one Jake token for $1. What's my market cap?
Billion.
Yep.
There you go. That's the simplest analogy. And go ahead, Jake. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, you can see how that can get wonky very quickly because people think that amount of money has to move into the asset when it's really just the total outstanding number of the asset at the current trading value or what somebody's willing to pay for it. So yeah, the market cap is going to look bonkers on this thing when it's at these high values. But this is also a protocol. And I don't think people understand that either. Like, imagine you send $1 every time you send an email. How many emails you get a day, Johnny?
Oh, forget about it. I'd be retired already.
So if you can imagine how much data is moved around at scale globally, it's the same amount, or probably not the same amount, probably more value that could be moving around every single day. When we moved from mail to email, like if you were really getting it back in the day, you probably sent like 20 or 25 letters a week, right? I get 20 or 25 emails in the first hour every day. And so just as a comparison, so that's the other piece of this that I don't think people are comprehending either, is the volume of payments and the pace at which money is going to move is going to be exacerbated exponentially in comparison to how it moves today with all the frictions in the banking system. So again, you're going to need ample liquidity for all of those payments to settle real time in that circumstance. So, and if it's a global infrastructure that's providing that, the market cap of the asset that's going to be providing that liquidity is going to have to be pentillions of dollars.
Well, that's the key, right? The liquidity has to be, like you said, you buy it for $1, but someone goes to sell $2, it crashes. Right? The liquidity.
Right. Well, and that's the other piece. You need it to be a stable value. If you look at the indexes in the stock market, it takes billions of dollars to move them 1% either direction, right? And you would want that for a high value, quote unquote, stable coin. If there's going to be large fluctuations in the amount of liquidity moving through it at any given time, you need it to be a high stable value that isn't impacted or completely, crashed by billions of dollars or trillions of dollars moving over the network or being bought or sold at any one given time.
So you know what I find interesting about all these topics, Jake, is that if a lot of the price increase that we see for this XRP community specifically ends up coming to fruition, not only are people not going to have to work, they're going to have to figure out how to protect themselves and what to do with their wealth. And I know you talk a lot about that at Digital Ascension Group. What would you say to somebody who doesn't have any background and you believe, like you said, this is an asset that's $50,000 in the next 4 or 5 years? That means people who have 100 of these tokens are going to have extreme amounts of wealth. And so what would you say to somebody who's never had wealth before and you believe, like they said, maybe making millions of dollars over these next couple of years?
Yeah, my fear is that a lot of people will end up like a lottery winner. Ideally, hopefully you've been here for a long time. We've been here for a long time. Many people are very new and have just gotten into this stuff. Proud to have you. Glad to have you here. You didn't have to go through all of the gut-wrenching pain like we did over the last couple of years. But during that time, I think a lot of people cultivated skills, traits, and beliefs to be able to maintain this wealth over the long term. The faster you receive money, the faster it tends to go, because you didn't build the network of people, you didn't build the beliefs in yourself, you didn't build the skill set to be able to maintain it. And it is a skill set to manage wealth. You can make a lucky bet and make a bunch of money. I know plenty of people that are not the sharpest tool in the shed that are multi-millionaires. And you should only have to get rich once. Okay. If you get rich once, then if you build the skill of maintaining it or preserving it and you partner up with the right people, you don't have to be that sharp in order to keep it. my concern is, 70% of lottery winners go broke, literally bankrupt in 3 to 5 years. And if people aren't careful, if they don't understand the difference between liabilities and assets, they don't understand how to use debt as a tool, they don't understand how to protect their assets inside structures and entities with trusts or with an LLC or insurance products, they're going to be in a situation where somebody finds out that they have that money, and then they wind up in a lawsuit, or they sell and now they have 40% taxes and they owe the IRS more money. Or worst case scenario, Johnny, God forbid you have the price appreciation. It's $100 million. Your kids don't have access to the wallet, but it's in your will. And now they get $100 million to them after probate, but they can't get to it to pay the 40% taxes. So now they're in bankruptcy and owe $40 million to the US government that they can't even get access to. Like, there's bad situations.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is good, because you've got a program or project that people can do at Digital Essentials to kind of prevent that from happening, right?
Well, yeah. Well, and again, you can work with other people besides us. There's other custodians and other people out there. We are in a position where we do have to have a higher threshold than some of the other ones. 50,000 XRP is our minimum currently, $500,000 in total portfolio value. But we do provide the institutional custody, segregated bankruptcy remote insured accounts at Anchorage, which is an institutional custodian. They're the only, at this time, federally OCC regulated chartered bank. Ripple's applied for that license. I think they might get it here at the end of the month or maybe early December. But right now they're the only one out there that has that designation. There's other state chartered banks, but it's been very difficult for me to find, like, I built this for myself and I want it done a specific way, right? I want my name on the account. I don't want to be a counterparty or a creditor to the institution, because we don't want another FTX or a Celsius or one of those situations. So all of the assets are held in the client's name. They are the signer on the account. We're the countersigner. It's kind of like a three-legged stool. Okay, so Anchorage provides the institutional infrastructure and the trust charter to be able to hold the assets. We are the fiduciary or the advisor on the account. And then the client is the client. They own the assets. And if any one of those legs falls, two legs are still standing. So let's say, Anchorage goes bankrupt. I don't think that's going to happen. They've got, $600-700 million on the balance sheet. They're very well capitalized. I know Nathan, I know the team over there. They're doing a really good job. But something happens. They're bankruptcy remote. Another trust bank would step in. Okay. Let's say you want to move it away from us, or we go out of business for whatever reason. You just assign another wealth manager to your account, and all they do is onboard with Anchorage, and now they manage your account. If the client, God forbid, something happens to them, we have beneficiaries on the account, their spouses on the account, their trustees on the account, and they don't have to know anything about crypto. They don't have to, be able to move it off of an exchange or understand wallet addresses or any of the more complicated stuff to be able to participate in this asset class. It's right there. It's easy for them. And they receive the assets in kind. We're never going to liquidate assets. It's always going to move to your heirs in kind. So that's what I've seen happen on some other deals is, the beneficiaries of the account did get the money, but it was in cash and not in kind.
So Johnny, I'm not sure if you have a follow-up on that one, because I am going to change gears here. I want to go into the ETF topics with the OTC desk, because I think this is something people don't fully understand yet. What we're witnessing right now is about 11 million shares of XRP be taken off the OTC desks and off the exchanges and put into the hands of the ETF issuers. Now, for the time being, we're focused on inflows. Maybe there'll be a day and age when these ETFs are dumping more than they're purchasing. But for the short term, as these products go live, there is a supply shock moment on the horizon. And it starts with Franklin Templeton, and then it's Grayscale and Bitwise and Canary Capital and every other ETF filing that we've seen over the last couple of months. But I'm waiting for 12 or BlackRock. Let's go right to that, actually, because again, people want to talk about what could happen to the market if BlackRock launched an XRP ETF. I can tell you, me and Johnny, when we talk off air, this guy won't stop talking about if BlackRock files, it changes everything. So I want to hear your perspective on this. First of all, why would it change everything if BlackRock files? Because people just don't know. Why would that be a big difference for you? And do you anticipate they're going to end up filing for an XRP spot ETF?
There's been a couple different instances where both Brad Garlinghouse and Larry Fink have been asked about a BlackRock ETF. Both of them said, I can't talk about that in those interviews. So that tells you there's something, there's a there. an NDA, something in place that they can't discuss on an open public network. So we'll set that aside. 2024, actually 2023, about 2 years ago, almost to the day, 11/14, we had a Delaware filing for an iShares XRP Trust ETF. They have to file a trust in Delaware in order to be able to hold the assets, to be able to accumulate them and support the ETF. Okay. Bloomberg came out and said that was fake, and then it was swept under the rug. We never had BlackRock, we never had Ripple, either one come out and say that that ETF filing was fake, which is very unusual. There has been one or two other ETF filings, and that were fake, and immediately both the token and the people that supposedly filed it both came out and said it was fake. So for them, neither one to come out and say that, and only Bloomberg report on it, which the reporter that reported that was also at Swell the last 2 years. Very interesting. Eric, he's a good guy. I like Eric. But anyway, so again, just another piece of the puzzle there. Interesting that 2 years ago that would pop up, and then the DOJ would investigate, and we never heard anything about it. If BlackRock throws their hat in the ring, it is a huge approval and step forward for this asset, like gigantic. I think that you're going to see them and potentially Vanguard. Vanguard actually did not do anything with the Bitcoin ETFs. They actually forbade all of their subsidiaries and anybody that's associated with them from selling any of the Bitcoin ETF products, which was also interesting to me. If you look back, there's some correlations between Ripple and Vanguard and some other things. I don't know if you have that graphic or not, Abs, but that's a good one too. So anyway, they tend to be the cheapest on the fees. They did 25 basis points or 0.25% on the Bitcoin ETF, and they aggregated a ton of Bitcoin. And then they moved all that over to Anchorage from Coinbase because of institutional custody at Anchorage. There you go. There's the Vanguard. I knew you had it. So it'd be interesting to me. I think that those are two other outstanding ETFs that we might see throw their hat in the ring here for XRP. And if we saw inflows from both of those, imagine the institutional demand from all of the counterparties for Vanguard. They have no exposure to crypto. They have none of the other ETFs. And now they have the XRP ETF products that they can allocate to. I think that we would see huge inflows from all of their counterparties as well. That would, again, just exacerbate how much XRP was taken off the market.
So when you were on the Paul Barron show, and we often play this clip, you talked about $10 to $12 just on the ETF demand alone. What are some of your thoughts on that? Do you stand by that $10 to $12 just based on the ETFs, or is it going to take, because this is what me and Johnny have said, our theory, now it's no domino theory, it's an ETF theory. We thought that all these ETFs were going to get approved right around the same time, 3, 4, 7 days from one another, and you were going to get that kind of snowball effect that you just gestured at. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think all of it's going to culminate to the perfect storm. Like you guys brought on here and you're talking about, the yield curve over there in Japan. And like, that's the first thing we jump to, right? We'll set that aside for a second. Yeah. If you just had inflows on ETFs, with where the current supply is on the market, I think that that's probably a realistic price target for XRP, somewhere between 10 and $15.
And that's just based off the ETF demand alone. And me and Johnny did some interesting math on this, is that there's basically a really big inflection point. There's not a lot of change. There's some minimal change. And all of a sudden, there's no more XRP. And we've talked about this from just the ETF standpoint. But with this reverse carry trade kind of factoring in, it's very easy to see how you could get to these exaggerated price targets. Now, let's get into the Ripple escrow, because I think this is also very important. There's a lot of pre-allocation narratives, and we can talk about that if we have time later on. But what would happen to the company Ripple, just broadly, if they were sitting on an escrow where each individual XRP token is worth 4 digits? Because now Ripple is a global superpower, and I want to hear your vision for that.
Well, they just raised capital at a $40 billion valuation from Citadel and Fortress.
Right.
Pretty significant. They just had a tender offer that they bought back shares because they believe they're going to be more valuable at $250 per share, which is actually where that last round was as well. So for those institutions to be adding additional capital for equity in Ripple at this point, they also think there is a lot of upside. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. That's why they make investments, to make money, or strategic alignment. It could be both. So yes, to your point, the escrow, if Ripple continues to manage that, they would be the global liquidity provider. They would be the backstop. They would be the lender of last resort. we know that Brad Garlinghouse and some other people from Ripple met with the IMF in 2017 because there's photos of them and Christine Lagarde when she was still there before she became the head of the ECB. I don't know that they get to continue to manage the escrow at those valuations. I think that there might be some exchange, like you talked about with the NDAs or pre-allocation, where somebody else ends up managing that escrow. But that does not include the 5 billion XRP that Ripple themselves use for their products. So, at 5 billion XRP at $1,000 a piece, that's $5 trillion on their balance sheet. That would automatically make them the largest corporation per market cap in the world, just valued by the assets on their balance sheet. And if that was before they go public, I think they're probably going to be the highest value public offering, which I think will be a direct listing. I don't think it'll be a traditional IPO, but I do think that they will eventually go public. But I think it's going to probably be at a super exaggerated valuation post price appreciation for XRP, like you mentioned.
You know what I find interesting too is there is a former employee, Bob Way, who I got the chance to interview at XRP Las Vegas back in 2023. And he had some really interesting statements of August of this year. And somebody said, what's the end game? And he stated Ripple being a super global neobank with the XRP ledger being the base layer for all global economies, essentially a base highway where every country gets access to that highway. And Ripple is the one facilitating a lot of that movement here. Johnny, I wanted to give you a chance to ask a quick question and then we'll get right into it.
Well, yeah, so I know, Jake, one of the things our audience always asks us, right, whenever you're talking about that $100 prediction by the end of the year, it's with such strong confidence. And people want to know, where is that confidence coming from? What is it that makes you so sure that $100 will happen by the end of the year? People want to know. Inquiring minds want to know, Jake. So I gotta ask it.
I think I've told you guys this analogy before. I feel like I am an Indian on the campground, and the shamans are all in the teepee. And occasionally a shaman will come out and I'll get to talk to the shaman for a little while. And this includes people from Bank of America, Citi, Goldman, BNY, R3, Ripple, other institutions and enterprises. Because we don't just, we have multiple subsidiaries underneath Digital Ascension Group. Our main vertical is the multifamily office and the wealth management, but we also develop other blockchain technologies for private markets and other things. And so through those conversations, I'm able to discern and have additional context that I don't think if I was just in one of those verticals, I would get. And so because of that, the shamans, I've never gotten the full story from one shaman. Okay. But they will give me hints. I will ask questions to see their visceral reaction on things. And there's a little golden nugget every once in a while. And I have a critical thinking. I think I'm decent at critical thinking. Probably not the best in the world, but I'm decent. And so I'm able to put things together that maybe other people might miss. Okay. And so through those conversations, that's what gives me the confidence to come on here and say that I'm extremely confident that XRP will be at least $100 in the very near future. Again, pending certain events taking place. Okay.
So what are those key events in your mind that, when you say that, right? Because I know they want to know, what are you in your mind, the 2 or 3 things that got to happen for that theory to hold true?
The reverse carry trade has to unwind this year before the Clarity Act is passed. That is the main catalyst that will then transcend all the other dominoes that would cause a supply shock to be able to push the price to the valuation that I'm talking about.
Gotcha. Well, Jake, thanks, because you confirmed the fact that we've always said Jake knows more than most people know. And honestly, and you're right. I get it, right? I'm sitting in there with meetings, technology, and you're having conversation, and you get to hear little pieces of things. I'm talking in my business, not in this line.
Yeah.
And you can then kind of put together what you're hearing here, what you're hearing there, and you kind of get a sense of, oh, I see where this is going. And I think that those insights that you have are very important. I don't think people understand that you're getting to talk to the pieces here and pieces there, and you're kind of puzzling it together and saying, okay, from what I'm hearing and where I think it may go, this could potentially happen. And then you're relatively confident.
Well, so I've talked to MasterCard, we've talked to Visa.
Confident. He's very confident, right?
That's I was going to ask you to say, give me your percent, 80%, 90% confident. I know it's a tough one, but I know people want to know. So if you want to share
99.9999999.
Sniff that soul bitch.
Call it 100, round it if you want.
I love it.
So basically 100. Now, I do want to give a big thank you to everybody who showed up to today's stream. And Jake, if we could, I just wanted to answer a couple of questions that we had in chat. So this person, John, big thank you for the $50. Also a member of the community. And we just launched our memberships. We passed 200 members of the Good Evening Crypto community. So we're really proud of that. And big thank you to everybody who's joined. They said, Jake, the mic didn't work on the M&M. Will spaced out ETFs hinder a supply shock? I think it's a great question. We kind of addressed it earlier, but thoughts on that?
So originally I thought that. I thought if they leak them out slowly, we would see the price move slowly. But I think that they're going to bleed the OTC and dark pools dry through a couple ETFs. And then you're going to get BlackRock and all of them hammered at one time. Maybe right before, right after ISO goes live.
Jake, let me ask you a question on that.
That's November 22nd, just to outline that.
Yes, it is.
That is 4 days from today, what you just said, which is great. And Johnny, one quick point, because we talked about it yesterday. Look at the inflows. When BlackRock launched their Bitcoin product, 100 million on day one, Canary Capital, less than 1/100th the size, when you think about assets under management, did 2.5 times the amount of inflows for the XRP product. So it goes to show a lot of demand and more than we even saw for Bitcoin. Sorry, Johnny, floor is yours.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I actually forgot what I was going to ask. I forgot what we were talking about. But I think at the end of the day, that is one of the questions everybody has on their mind is I know what I want to ask you. So going and buying up all the dark pools, right, and drying that out, is that possible knowing that there's still 30 billion in escrow that can be fed out there to feed it, right? I mean, isn't that an option? If those start draining down, Ripple can go ahead and release some of those and kind of fill it back up again, no? So what do we have to see more of that escrow get chewed through? And I'm asking the question, I'm just curious your opinion. Do we need to see more of that escrow get chewed through before we can get that price appreciation? What's your thoughts?
What does Ripple want to happen?
Oh, we know what they want to have.
Price appreciation.
They want to see that go up while they're holding the escrow.
So if you want to go back to the last time XRP moved exponentially to the upside, do you guys actually know what the catalyst that was that caused that in 2017?
No, I don't.
They locked up half of the supply. They created the escrow.
That makes sense.
And so we saw a supply shock then, and that's what caused significant price movement to the upside at that point.
Yeah.
They don't have to release any XRP every month. That escrow unlocks if they don't want to put any out onto the market. They don't have to.
They can hold it.
They could take that whole billion and put it right back on the end. They've only released about 300 million per month this year. They've taken 700 million XRP from those unlocks and put it back at the end of the escrow every single month this year. So if Ripple did want the price to move for their benefit and the utility of the token inside their infrastructure and adoption of their business, it'd be very easy for them just, I think we're just going to keep it and we'll roll it to the back end of the escrow this month.
Very smart. And I agree with that. This is my idea when it comes to this conversation too, is it's exactly what you started with. What does Ripple want to happen? Well, they want XRP to be as high as possible. That's the entire narrative. And they built their company around it, kind of the same way that we discussed earlier in the episode. Now, I think this question, big thank you for the 1099. Caden, they said GMC often says take profits. Jake says it's better to hold your assets. And I find this really interesting because this is something that me and Johnny have had a back and forth on. Now, the conclusion that I've come to for me personally is it's safer to take a little bit of profit in case we go into a bear market so I can have some capital to reinvest back into these assets. Now, when I say a little bit of profit, I'm talking 10, 15, 20% if things get really exciting. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on that. Do you have any thoughts on taking profit versus holding for the long term? What would you say in regards to that?
Well, it's going to be a fiduciary answer, but
right.
Understand the tax implications that you're going to have with those profits. And I hope that Trump decides that, no capital gains tax on crypto, just like everybody else. Right now, they're a capital asset. Okay. So you want to understand the tax implications. If it's our long-term capital gains, if it's over $500,000, it depends on what your income is, but probably around 20% tax that you'll just, $500,000, you're going to pay 100 grand in taxes. Set that aside, put it in a money market, and just, if it's in the stables, maybe you put it in VanEck and wait and gain your 5% on it or 6% over the year until you have to pay that. The rest of that, cool. Maybe your goal is to pay your house off or pay for your kids' college, or there's a lot of different things that you could do with that amount of money, right? Everybody has different goals. So I would challenge people to know what you're going to do with the capital if you're going to take profits, understand the tax implications, And then also understand the difference between assets and liabilities. If you are going to take profit, and let's say you do want the Lambo, okay, how about we buy a car wash? And then we lease the Lambo, okay, with the cash flow off of the car wash. Now you have an appreciating asset that you can use depreciation on to offset that income, and you're getting cash flow to be able to pay for your lifestyle. All right. So if you're going to do that, I would say just be smart about it. And there's also a cost to benefit there, right? If you do believe in the long-term valuation of the asset going to these high numbers, it probably makes sense to borrow against it at a lower interest rate than what you would pay the taxes, right? So even today, the interest rates are 15%. You're going to owe 20% taxes anyway if you're taking a larger amount. If you borrow, it's actually cheaper. Now, if we get no capital gains, that completely changes, right? It would be more expensive to service the debt than actually sell the asset. But you're also going to miss out on the appreciation and the upside. So if you're doing this for legacy, you want to leave this to your family, you probably want to hold longer. If you're doing it to supplement your lifestyle or execute on financial goals that you have today, probably taking some profits is a better option, right? So have a good advisor, work with a CPA, work with a certified financial planner. We have them at Digital Wealth Partners. They're all licensed. They have their Series 65. They can provide you financial advice on your crypto. We're the only firm in the world that does that. So, if you want a consult, you don't have to be a client. You can pay the $300 and just get a consult with one of our advisors. There's institutional custody. There's all kinds of stuff. But yeah, you never go broke taking profits. Abs.
Right. And I love that answer. So quick question, because I know Johnny's going to have a comment here. Has the shaman told you anything about a reduction in capital gains tax? That's all I got to know.
I got to talk to Eric Trump a little bit when we were at SALT. I'm hopeful that ends up being the case.
So we're not talking domino theory confidence, but we're hopeful, guys. So I like that. We're almost there. Johnny, floor is yours.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, Jake, we certainly know an app where people can go and take profits. But what I'm curious is if people want to come and talk to you, obviously, click the link below for Merlin. But if people want to know how to get into this tax, what you were talking about, so where can they find you? Where can they go to set up that appointment with you guys?
Yeah. So the wealth management company is Digital Wealth Partners. You just go to digitalwealthpartners.net. You go over to the contact us page, and they'll reach out to you. You'll talk with one of our advisors. We don't communicate through any social media platforms. If I message you on any networks, it's not me. It's a scam. I wish I had the time to message people every single day, but I don't, because I'm out here working with my team and partners, and we're building products. I'm working 16 hours a day most of the time. It's nice to get on social media, but I don't get to very often. So communicate through email. And the other reason for that is we have to be auditable by the SEC, and they need all of those communications. So email only over there. If you want the estate planning side of things or taxes, you'll go to digitalfamilyoffice.io. And there's all the services listed there. You can also reach out for a consult there. And then if you guys have your community, and I don't want to, throw my community out on your show. Okay. Well, I respect, I appreciate you guys.
We're here to help each other, bro. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Absolutely. Well, if you're in our community at the Beyond Broke Mastermind and you want to go check out y'all's community, we would love to have you guys, double dip. But yeah, we have over 10,500 people in the Beyond Broke Mastermind at this point, where we provide financial education and business resources. We do some private deals. Fantastic community. Wish you guys all the success with yours also. I think that they're going to get a lot of information from you guys that they're not going to get anywhere else. And that's kind of what we tout also. So again, appreciate you guys having me. And if you do want to check out the community, just go to beyondbroke.com. And there's a code you can use, Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, and it gets you the first month for $2. Because it's not for everybody, and I don't want to make it like it's no month-to-month it's month-to-month contract. Like if you can leave at any time, but if there's 10,500 people in there staying every single month, I think that says something about what we're doing.
Jake, word of advice to entrepreneurs, right? Because I think you've done a lot of successful things in the past year. What do you think helped you on a personal level to kind of ramp up your career? What took you to the next level personally to get to where you are today?
2 things. 5 years ago, well, 3 things. I wrote down what I wanted, and I knew what success looked like. So a lot of people, I think, kind of wander through things and don't know exactly where they're going. If you have a North Star, you can get there. If God will put it in your mind, you can accomplish it. So write that down. Next up, the thing that I would say changed my path more than anything else, aside from writing things down, was I was intentional about meeting a brand new person every single day and having an intimate conversation with them. So over the last 5 years, I've met with probably, I don't know, 3,500, 3,600 people, and had an intimate conversation, got to know about them, their kids, their wife, their aspirations, goals, how I could help them achieve those things. I'm always trying to provide value for other people. I don't expect anything in return. One of the stated goals that I had for Beyond Broke when we first started it was help 1 million people become financially free. I don't know that we're going to get to that in my lifetime, but if we are able to help people with generational wealth, I think that we could get to that goal, which would be really cool. And then the last piece that I would say probably that's helped me kind of level up, it's who, not how. So kind of this goes back to meeting other people. I wouldn't be where I am today without my team. We have close to 50 employees that work at Digital Ascension Group, and all of them are some of the best people in the world, in my opinion. They're the hardest workers. I'm looking over here. I'm seeing them send them emails right now at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, East Coast time. They're out here hustling just as hard as I am because they see the vision. They see what we're creating, the value that we're creating. We like I said, I solved a problem for myself, and then we've created a business around it because other people want the same thing. So, if you can find the right people that believe in your vision, and get them on your team, you can go a lot further in a group than you can by yourself.
And we want to give a special shout out to Mickle. We're big fans of Connor, as you know him on this channel. So shout out to Mickle, shout out to Zach Rector, and a big thank you to Jake for joining us tonight. Now, Jake, we got to talk about a lot of exciting things, and we look forward to having you back whenever you're available. And you know what I'm looking forward to? When the reverse carry trade plays out, how famous you become. Because here's the thing, you may be on billboards, you may be all over, and I'm looking forward to that one day. So I'm just throwing that out there. If you guys want, if you enjoyed this show, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. And like we always do, we want to thank our sponsors. Thank you to Merlin and thank you to iTrust Capital. You guys can take advantage of both these applications completely free. Click on the link below, sign up today. And if you're using the iTrust Capital link, you're going to get $100 to start off. Used to be using promo code GEC9. Now they gave us a special link. You just got to click that link, my friend. So check it out below, guys. Tax free if you're holding in a Roth IRA over the age of 59 and after 5 years. That's pretty exciting, Jake. It may not be a domino theory, but that's something we can all agree upon, my friend. So once again, big thank you to Jake and Johnny. I wanted to give you a chance to kind of get a final comment in there, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, Jake. So, I got a summary here of everything we talked about. So if I get this right, basically we need yield curve rise, oil explode, bonds get flooded, shitstorm in stocks, and XRP to the rescue. Did I kind of summarize it? Is that pretty much what we need to have? Man. All right. So there you go, folks. You have it now. You know the path. There it is out in front of you. Now, it sounds like, we got to go through some pain, right? Obviously, with a 50% or crash in the market, that's going to hurt, right? But I think people, if you understand the vision, then you can kind of see, like, if you hold and you're patient, you can get through it. And that's when we typically see, right? Things got to crash and burn before we see the upside. So I just want to make sure. Yeah, exactly. Right. It rises. I do have one last question for you from a price point perspective. I've been struggling with this personally. So I'm curious. I like to ask our guests. So with stocks, it's very easy to price a stock, right? It's earnings per share and it's free. Then times a PE and boom, that's your price. But with crypto, it's a whole new ballgame, right? Because you buy XRP, you don't own Ripple. You don't own the profits of Ripple. So the question I have or have been struggling with is, how do you think in the future, as crypto becomes a market, will they value these cryptocurrencies? Will it be just the utility that's driven on the ledger, do you think? Or will it be that times some PE level similar to stocks? I'm just curious how I'm struggling with how the market's going to, right now it's pure speculation, right? $2, it's just speculation. We all know we're not in full-blown utility. But I'm curious, when we get to utility, how do you think these things will be valued? Do you have any perspective on that?
I think it's going to be volume over a network. I think that's going to be the key metric. Sustained volume over a period of time. I don't know what the period of time will be. I thought maybe for a while it'd be like a liquidity provision. But there's a lot of these applications where they're settling data or things that are not value inherently, that are still volume based. So I think that that's probably going to be the metric, and there'll be some multiple over volume over some period of time that they'll use as a metric to value the tokens themselves.
So really, then you're saying like the daily transactional volume, whatever that minimum daily, or maybe weekly, whatever. If they both, but you're thinking that could be the driver. Okay, and that's funny. When we first, Abs and I were talking this years ago, that's what we were thinking, the daily transactional volume. But we're wondering, if things change or how other people see it as well.
I think there may be some other pieces to that equation over the long term, but I think that that'll definitely be a component. That's the only thing that I think is consistent. So maybe it's total available supply times total daily volume.
That would make more sense. Yeah.
So Jake, a couple of questions here, and I'm not sure how much time you have, so I don't want to take any more of your time, but there are a couple of topics. Do you have can you give me a rough estimate on, do you need to wrap up, or what are some of your thoughts?
I need to hop. I got to put my kiddo to bed.
We're making short and sweet. The kid's more important. That's we all know that. Is Ripple competing with Swift, or is Ripple working with Swift from your perspective?
Well, so you guys reported on my my comment on my live, which I thought might end up getting me in trouble, by the way. But Brad put out a statement to his shareholders where he talked about that in his shareholder statement, where he said that they used to feel like they were competitors to Swift, but today they do not. If you're looking at Bob Way's vision, they are actually a supplemental component to Swift, or more of a bank or institution that may operate working with Swift rather than a competitor. And you've also had Brad talk about, he thinks that by 2030 they'll have 14% of Swift's volume, which is not that much. And so you're going to see an adoption from Swift, I think, utilizing R3, settling through XRP for those transactions real time, versus working with Ripple to do that. And again, that would also double down on the fact that XRP is not a security of Ripple. There would be other counterparties leveraging the asset to facilitate transfer and part of their business rather than just Ripple alone. So they wouldn't be a monopoly on that side of things, which we know that the government doesn't like monopolies.
Absolutely not. Why would they ever? Right. So I want to give a big thank you to Jake. That's the greatest way to end the show. Shout out to the kiddo. Good night. Sweet dreams, like we like to say. And big thank you to Jake once again for joining us tonight. We'd love to have you on for a part 2 and kind of discuss how this whole thing evolves, maybe in a month or two. But like you said, November 22nd could be a very important day. And maybe we'll just leave it kind of open-ended on that note. So Jake, thanks again for joining us tonight. I'm just going to quickly address some of the super chats. So feel free to jump off, and we're going to pay due respect to everybody who donates. But once again, thank you to Jake. Hashtag Jake Claver in chat. And we look forward to having you once again. Maybe even a dream case scenario, we get you and Mikkel on the same stream. Let's make it happen.
We're game.
Dreams. If we can get $1,000 XRP, we can get Mikkel and Jake on the same stream. How about that, guys? So shout out. Thanks again, Jake. We appreciate you, my friend, and we're looking forward to the next one.
Yeah,
absolutely. Appreciate you, gentlemen.
And Jake, I just want to say thanks, man. It was great seeing you. It was great seeing you last in Vegas as well when we saw you out there. And hopefully we'll see you again. Will you be at XRP Las Vegas 2026?
We'll see. As long as we're invited back, we'll come.
Well, it was great seeing you. We were happy to see you then, and you're always smiling.